Hello all, my name is Ria Custodio and I did my project on Philippine identity. I called it Sino ako, which means who am I in Tagalog. A little background about the Philippines. We are of Malayo-Polynesian and Austronesian descent. We're an archipelago of 7,000 islands in the Pacific. Because we are made up of over 7,000 islands, we are divided into regions. There is currently a total of 17 regions. Within those regions, there are 8 major dialects, Tagalog being the majority dialect in the Philippines with 28.1%, Cebuano at 13.1%, and Ilocano at 9%. And everything else following is less than 10%. With that being said, Tagalog is the dialect that is most known throughout the Philippines. So if you were to go to the Philippines and you were to speak in Tagalog, most likely everybody will understand what you're saying. During the pre-colonial Philippines, animism was widely practiced in the Philippines. It is a social conduct of oneself as an individual, family member, and a community member. The religion before was heavily influenced by Hinduism, which means that we believed to coexist with spirits. We believed in immortality of the soul and if life after death. Um, we believed in the existence of a number of gods whom they worshipped and made offerings to according to the rank. For example, there was Patala Maikapal, who was the creator, and Indinayale, which is the god of agriculture. Women were considered equal and had the right to inherit property, engage in trade and industry, and succeed to chieftainship of the barangay in the absence of a male heir. Women also practiced medicine, and they were called baimbailans, which were shamans or healers, and their functions included the role of community leaders, warriors, community defenders, priestesses, healers, sages, and seers. They were able to communicate, appease, and harness the spirits of the dead and the spirits of nature. Barangays were a form of government which consisted of 30 to 100 families who were headed by a chieftain called datus. The datu was the chief executive, legislator, and judge, also the supreme commander in times of war. Alliance among the barangays were common and were formalized in a ritual called sanduguan. The livelihood of the people was able to flourish through agriculture, fishing, and tending to livestock. In 1521, entered the colonization era of the Philippines. On March 31st, 1521, Ferdinand Magellan, a Portuguese explorer from Spain, landed on the coast of the Philippines. Magellan named the Philippines after King Philip II of Spain. However, foreign powers didn't earnest until 1564 by Andres de Orduneta through the Legazpi expedition. This was the expedition that helped spread the religion of Christianity throughout the Philippines. Spain's 3 objectives towards the Philippines was to acquire and share in the spice trade, to develop contacts with China and Japan in order to further Christian missionary efforts, and to convert Filipinos to Christianity. There was some resistance of the spread of Christianity by the Muslims in the south and the Iro tribe in the north. Lapu-Lapu, a ruler of the Mactans in the Visayas, was the first Filipino native to resist imperial Spanish colonization. He was also the person to kill Ferdinand Magellan. Unfortunately, islands were accomplished with relatively little bloodshed because of the population offered little armed resistance initially, except for the Muslims. By the late 1800s, the majority of the Philippines were converted into Christianity. On April 25th, 1898, there was the Spanish-American War. The Treaty of Paris in 1898 ended the Spanish-American War, where the Spanish sold the Philippines to the U.S. for $20 million. Then come the Filipino-American War, which lasted more than 10 years, killing more than 600,000 Filipinos, where Philippines resisted the U.S. attempt to establish control over the islands. The U.S. also introduced Western models of educational and healthcare systems. This reinforced elitism and a colonial mentality that persists to this day, mixed with the Spanish feudal patron-client relationship. On March 24, 1934, Franklin D. Roosevelt signed the Philippine Commonwealth and Independence Acts, which declared independence of the Philippines. However, it took effect on July 4, 1946. And then comes World War II in the 1940s, where the Filipinos fought alongside the U.S. to thwart off the Japanese forces. However, the Japanese um, occupied some parts of the Philippines from 1942 to 1945. After the declaration of the independence of the Philippines, uh, there were waves of migration of Filipinos to the U.S. from 1906 all the way up to 1984. The first wave of Filipinos was from 1906 to 1946, with approximately 150,000 Filipinos, mostly farmers, were sent to Hawaii for the sugarcane plantation and also in California. After World War II, from 1946 to 1964, approximately 30,000 Filipinos, mostly World War II veterans and their family, were able to move to the Philippines due to the Alien Fiancés and Fiancées Act, which facilitated the admission of alien fiancés or fiancées of members of the armed forces to the United States. From 1965 to 1984, approximately 630,000 Filipinos migrated to the United States due to the Hart-Celler Act of 1965, which erased America's long-standing policy of limiting immigration based on national origin. The result of this was family reunification and skilled and other professionals to migrate to the United States, for example, Filipino nurses. Today, the Philippines is the 13th most populated country in the world between Mexico and Ethiopia, with an estimated 108.12 million people in 2019. The Philippines is the third largest Asian immigrant group in the United States and the second longest colonized Asian country with over 350 years. Today, some Filipinos still continue traditions such as the stick martial arts sport, weaving traditional fabrics, tattoos, and traditional dancing such as tinikling. So if you were to ask me, who am I? I am Ria, a Filipino American whose culture was lost through years of colonization. I am a soul who wanders this earth wondering where my ancestors came from, what struggles they've gone through, and what choices they made that birthed me in today's modern society. I am a product of years of resistance of the colonizer that my ancestors continue to live through me. I am neither Asian or Pacific Islander, or whatever label society has of me. I am myself, the underdog, whose sole purpose in life is to carry on the traditions and resistance of my ancestors.